One night in early December, the weather suddenly turned cold with the north wind howling overnight. Snowflakes were floating down in large numbers, and by the time it was dawn, a thick layer had already fallen on the ground. Wang Chao was awakened by the reflections of snow outside the window and thought it was dawn. But after looking at the alarm clock on the bedside, he realized that it was only after 5 o'clock and he had woken up an hour early. However, he never had the habit of staying in bed. He got dressed silently and took 10 minutes to wash up. When he heard his parents in the next room getting dressed, Wang Chao walked out. Wang Chao is a second-year high school student in City C. He is 16 years old, has an average height, looks ordinary, and has an average academic performance. His family conditions are that his parents have already been laid off, and their combined monthly income does not exceed 2,000 yuan. It is precisely because of all this that Wang Chao has a silent and introverted character. Behind Wang Chao's house is a park. The park faces the river and is densely wooded. The place is remote and gloomy. There is a path through it that leads to the school. Wang Chao likes to walk quietly alone and doesn't like the busy roads with cars. He takes this path every day to and from school. The park was very quiet, with no one around. Only a few sparrows chirped and jumped around on the snow-covered treetops. From time to time, they shook the snow off the trees, which added some life. As Wang Chao slowly walked through a dense pine forest, he noticed a figure shaking inside. Are people out for activities so early? Wang Chao was curious and tried his best to look into the woods. It turns out that the person moving in the woods is a woman wearing a white sportswear, white running shoes with a neat ponytail. She is practicing some martial arts. This woman looked to be in her 20s, and her movements were slow and leisure, as if she was practicing Tai Chi, which is popular in society. As Wang Chao looked at it, he found something different. He noticed that the woman's eyes were always focused on her moving fingers. She would always stretch out her hand slowly first, then suddenly grasp forward, followed by quickly withdrawing. Slowly reaching out, followed by grasping and withdrawing reminded Wang Chao of the action of fishing when he was a child. First slowly put his hand into the water so that the fish would not notice it, and then when the distance was close, he would suddenly reach out and the fish was caught. Moreover, Wang Chao also discovered that when the woman was punching, she is constantly walking in circles, and her steps were always flat against the ground as she waded around, as cautiously as if she was wading in muddy water. The woman's posture was not graceful, but between the movements, her whole body was moving. It can be observed that her strength was applied to every place, giving Wang Chao a feeling of excitement. Wang Chao was so fascinated that he didn't know how much time had passed. The woman suddenly stopped moving, raised her hands between her eyebrows, then slowly pressed them down to her abdomen, lightly stepped her left foot on the ground, and exhaled a long breath. Wang Chao clearly saw a long line of white air shooting straight out of the woman's mouth, like a sudden arrow of air. Can someone's breath come out like this? Wang Chao was very surprised when he saw this situation, and tried to blow out with all his strength. Unfortunately, when the breath he exhaled encountered the cold air, it only formed a white mist in front of him. Then it dissipated. Wang Chao didn't believe it, so he blew a few more times, which only made his heart beat faster, followed by dizziness. In the end, he only managed puffs of white mist. Just when Wang Chao was trying hard to regain his breath, the woman came over, smiled slightly, nodded, and said hello. Then she walked out of the woods in the opposite direction. When he arrived at school, Wang Chao didn't listen to any of the lessons for the whole day. He kept thinking about the scene of the woman exhaling in the morning. The more he thought about it, the more amazing he thought it was. He regretted that he had not struck up a conversation. The next morning, Wang Chao deliberately got up earlier. When passing by the park path, he found the woman practicing again. Wang Chao walked closer this time and watched. Although Wang Chao was watching from the edge of the woods, the woman continued to practice without being disturbed until she finished a set of movements, lifting her hands, pressing her abdomen, stepping on her feet, and exhaling. When the breath she exhaled met the cold air, it still turned into a thin and long white line, shooting straight out far away. Like an arrow. After the punch, the woman nodded and smiled at Wang Chao, with a kind look on her face. And without a word, she left just like yesterday. This went on for several days. Wang Chao got up early every day and immediately ran to the park woods to watch the woman practice. He found that no matter how early he got up, the woman was always there. But by 6 o'clock in the morning, she would leave. Wang Chao plucked up the courage to strike up a conversation several times, but when the words came to his lips, he couldn't speak. Every time the woman finished practicing, she would smile and nod to Wang Chao. Her expression was very kind, reminding Wang Chao of a big sister. A week passed like this. Although the two of them didn't speak, Wang Chao felt that they were familiar with each other. Finally, when the woman was about to leave, he went up to talk to her. "Sister, what kind of martial arts are you practicing?" The woman smiled. "I am practicing national arts." National arts. Wang Chao has also read a lot of martial arts novels. He only knows some messy martial arts, such as 19 white bone claws, 18 dragons subduing palms, toad inner arts, etc. Wang Chao also knew that these things were fiction. However, he has never heard of national arts. But Wang Chao watched this woman practice for a week and thought it was amazing. It looks much better than the likes of karate, taekwondo, muay thai, and Chinese kickboxing. What is national arts? Wang Chao asked. The woman, still smiling, said, "Martial arts that only kill enemies, not for performing, are called national arts." Upon hearing this, Wang Chao felt the power of national arts and he said, "Sister, can you teach me?" The woman looked at Wang Chao from top to bottom carefully and nodded. "You have been following me for a week, and you still have some perseverance. What is your name?" "My name is Wang Chao. I am 16 years old and a second-year high school student." "What is sister's name?" Wang Chao introduced himself. "My name is Tang Zichen." The woman always smiled. Wang Chao found that the skin on Tang Zichen's sister's face was smooth without any flaws, just like jade. "Your foundation is not good. You have never practiced before. Your waist, legs and feet are thin. If you want to learn, let's start with the standing horse stance first." Wang Chao heard standing horse stance and his head got a little big. "Sister Chen, everybody knows it, do I still need to be taught?" "Oh. Then show me." Tang Zichen took 2 steps and motioned to Wang Chao to show her. Wang Chao immediately threw away his arms, squatted half-footed, raised his hands flatly, and remained motionless, squatting evenly. "Sister Chen, is this correct?" Tang Zichen didn't speak, observing with just a smile. After a short while, Wang Chao's knees began to feel sore. After another while, his legs began to tremble and his waist became sore. Then his whole body became hot and sweat broke out on his forehead. Wang Chao knew he couldn't hold on anymore, so he stood up and rubbed his sore knees. "Sister Chen, am I doing it right?" Tang Zichen shook her head. "You will only strain your lumbar muscles if you stand motionless like this. Standing horse stance, standing horse stance. The important thing is the word horse. Your standing stance has to give off the essence of a horse." "Essence of a horse?" Wang Chao didn't understand. "Have you ever seen someone riding a horse?" Tang Zichen, no longer smiling. "When a person is riding on a horse, his body rises and falls with the horse. Standing horse stance is the foundation of martial arts. Previous sages derived from riding horses. So when you perform the stance, your body should be rising and falling, and a horse will appear out of thin air. When a person rides a horse, the ups and downs of force are dependent on the horse, so you can't use martial arts. But it is different on flat ground. Your ups and downs of force are equal to when you are riding a horse, the strength of a horse. If you stand motionless with all the weight of your body on your knees, after squatting for a long time, your knees will definitely have problems. Is there any other reason for this?" Wang Chao never thought such a simple posture contained so many things. "Observe how I squat," Tang Zichen said, and also took a horse stance. Wang Chao only saw her body rising and falling slightly, just like the breeze blowing the waves. "Come on, you try." Tang Zichen demonstrated, and Wang Chao followed suit. When squatting, force must first reach the soles of your feet. When you stand up, the 5 toes of your feet should be dug into the ground like chicken claws. Once the 5 toes dig in, they will affect the bones and muscles of the calf, and the knees will naturally stand up. When the thighs are tightened, lift the waist and tighten the abdomen. This is the starting form. When pressing down, the soles of your feet should be like ducks and geese, and the flippers and toes should be loosened. In this way, once the knees are loose, the thighs are loose, and the waist is seated, followed by your abdominal bulging. Between these slight ups and downs, keep changing the center of gravity of the whole body, so as to prevent the center of gravity from always falling in one place and causing physical damage. Wang Chao felt it made more and more sense after hearing this, nodded repeatedly, and followed Tang Zichen. At first, Wang Chao couldn't do this up and down at all, but Tang Zichen was by his side, and whenever Wang Chao's force failed to fall into place, she would kick him with her foot. The place where Wang Chao was kicked felt like it was been pricked by a needle, his muscles were stimulated, and all the strength in his body clicked into place. The amplitude of the ups and downs should not be large, just an inch apart from the toes. As you rise and fall, you must always squat accurately within this range. The more precise, the better. Tang Zichen was very strict when teaching. Sure enough, after learning the ups and downs, Wang Chao's standing time was extended from the original 5 minutes to more than 20 minutes. But 20 minutes later, Wang Chao felt a little dizzy, rising and falling, as if he was seasick, and his stomach was churning. Do you feel dizzy, like seasickness, and you want to vomit? Tang Zichen seemed to know how Wang Chao felt. Wang Chao nodded quickly. Stop the stance and recover. Your lower body posture is in place, but your head is not in place. When you perform this stance, your head should be high in the sky. What is high in the sky? Wang Chao stood up, panting heavily. It took a long time to suppress the nausea. This is a term in the 8 trigram school of form and meaning martial arts sutra, and it is difficult to explain. Come with me. Tang Zichen thought for a while. You will know it when you get to the embankment of the river. There is a big river outside the park. The reinforced concrete embankment built is very high, and there are dozens of concrete steps to climb up the embankment, which are very steep. Tang Zichen grabbed Wang Chao and quickly climbed up the embankment. Wang Chao's knees were so sore from performing the horse standing stance, and now after going through such a toss and climbing dozens of steps of a cement building, his knees were so sore that he could hardly even stand up. Look at this river view. Tang Zichen pointed to the vast river in front of Wang Chao before he could rest. Wang Chao also looked at it and felt that the river was rushing forward, extremely vast, the water on the shore was surging, and the 2 sides were covered with snow, and the scenery was very pleasant. Looking at it, Wang Chao felt that his whole body felt much better, his legs were no longer sore, and his waist was no longer painful. Climbing high and looking into the distance, once the field of vision is widened, the mood will be relaxed and the fatigue will be relieved. This is high in the sky. Tang Zichen really spoke truth to Wang Chao, like a big sister. When a horse is galloping, a person's field of vision is particularly wide, so he does not feel tired when riding a horse. In the same way, when a person is seasick, he can stand on the deck, taking in the wind, and look into the distance, and he will not feel dizzy. So, when standing in the horse stance, not only do you rise and fall together, but your strength must be in place, you must also open your eyes wide, and have the artistic conception of climbing high and looking far away. Only when you stand in the horse stance like this, you can stand correctly. All of these are truths that exist in life, but people usually ignore them. It is the sages who summed it up and integrated it into martial arts. Martial arts are not a myth, it exists in life. As long as you pay attention, you can turn decay into something amazing. Wang Chao seemed to understand a lot after hearing this. He felt that a door he had never seen before slowly opened to him. I've told you the principles and postures. You can practice for half a month first. After half a month, I'll wait for you here and see how effective your stance is. After Tang Zichen finished speaking, she turned around and walked down the embankment.